Welcome to the CCW Safe podcast. I am Rob High and joined today with my co-host Phil Naiman. How you doing, Phil?
Doing pretty good today. It's a beautiful day up here.
Good. Been a pretty busy week for us, and we're incredibly blessed with a rapidly expanding membership. But we know that we don't have, we've got a lot of new members that don't fully understand all of the things that come about for this. And we are a membership program. We're not a insurance company. So we've said it on other podcasts, I know, but one of the things that we did was we based the model of this membership group after the Fraternal Order of Police or the Police Benevolent Association, something like that, one of the police union models. And it was because we're all from law enforcement, we understand the critical need to have the proper investigation done when you're involved in an incident, and especially a lethal incident. And I just want to go over some things with Phil and I today and kind of cover on if you are involved in an incident, how to go about making proper notifications and that kind of thing. I know Phil has always been a great ally of ours. And at the same time, he wasn't fully up to speed until he really kind of got to know the whole team and what we do. And that's the biggest thing. That's the one thing that we can offer in this industry that nobody else can. They can't even come close to matching. And that's the experience and the decades of knowledge that are put together to give you guys not just the best opportunity at a legal defense, but for training and other things like that. One of the things that comes about is if I'm not sure, and it's really pretty simple. A critical incident for us is you have been arrested for something gun related in a self-defense incident. You've had to display your firearm, or you've been involved in a shooting. And any one of those three, we need to know about immediately. It's funny. I'm sure that there's other industries out there. We're not an insurance company, but I'm sure insurance companies will get somebody that's been involved in an accident and runs out and tries to purchase insurance and then come in and go, oh man, my lucky day, I bought insurance and I wrecked my car.
And there's rust in the dents in the metal, right?
Yeah. It's obvious that it's been there for a good duration. The biggest thing for me is just your ability to be defensible. If I'm lying out of the gate, and I'm a retired police investigator, and I'm fairly confident that those lies are going to be found out. The biggest
they all are. They all are all the time. I mean, an interesting thing, like you're talking about, not just yourself or the other guys on the team, but go do a ride along with any police department, and you'll see that officer there, from the start of his shift, when he leaves the watch room and takes off till he comes back in, every single person who's talking to him is lying to him. Right? It's amazing to me. And then you have to realize that, geez, after 20 years of this, you're a detective. You're like a human lie detector. Never play poker against detectives. You're going to lose everything because there's no bluffing these guys. So I'm not talking about CCW Safe finding out lies, but the investigative team, if you're not upfront and clear about exactly what happened, then they look at you as you're the bad guy. If you lie to an officer, it's like the worst thing. It's the word, you'll lose their trust forever because they've spent the last 10, 15, 20 years dealing with nothing but liars who are bad guys. So you really have to make sure that you are clear. Don't exaggerate. Don't make anything up. The facts always come out. And you have to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, off the soapbox for a little bit. For those of you that are new or don't really fully understand how that works, our emergency line operates an awful lot like 911. We've got somebody at a call center that's going to kind of triage the incident, and they want to know just a couple of things right up front, and that's all. They don't want to know anything more. And that's going to be, am I a member? Is this an emergency incident? And then I need to give them my name, and then I need to answer the questions yes or no. Have I been arrested? Have I been involved in a shooting? Or have I had to display my firearm in a self-defense case? And really, that's all I want you to talk to the call taker about. That's the only information they need to know. And it's one thing if you've got the guys off our critical response team that are showing up, that are subject to being subpoenaed in your case and testifying on your behalf and helping you. But those are guys that have decades and decades of experience giving testimony, testifying. That call taker doesn't know any of that stuff. So they really don't need to know the nuts and bolts and all the details. They just need to know the answers to those questions. And the sooner they have those answers, the sooner that they can get you connected with Don West. And as I was saying, it operates very much like a 911 call. You call in, I've been involved in emergency. I had to display my firearm. I had to, whatever the case may be, whatever the incident is. And when that is determined and the call, our call center confirms that, yes, you're a member, this is your name, and yes, you're involved in a critical incident, they immediately start making notifications. It's really fast. The longer you keep them on the phone, the longer it takes for them to make those notifications. So it would be like me calling 911 and just laboring on and on and on, and they're not starting anybody to come help me. The first thing on that triage is connecting you with an attorney that's going to determine what's going on. And our attorneys have got obviously decades and decades of experience. Don West has been a practicing attorney for more than 40 years. And we really are confident that he is the very best guy in the business out there. But while Don is being notified, our ownership group is being notified, our administrative staff is being notified, and our entire critical response team is notified. What comes about from there is, as the attorney is doing his triage, we're immediately looking at, we're validating the fact that, yes, you're a member, this is where you live. One of the questions from the emergency call center is your location. So now we know where you're at and we can start putting things together. The guys on the critical response team start confirming that information. We also start looking in the event that we need to get out there to you, because we want to be by your side within the first 24 hours. And that's just a big deal. If you've never been through anything like this, you have no earthly idea how rapidly the earth is going to start spinning for you. It just goes warp speed, and you have no earthly idea what's coming next. So to have that calm, reassuring voice present with you, it just makes things much, much easier. I don't know, Phil, if you make a call, well, put it like this: you don't have CCW Safe, and you're involved in an incident, and you have to defend yourself. Where do you go?
Yeah, we talked about this before. Some of the differences between CCW Safe and your business model versus others that are out there, where they might look at you and say, "Yep, you're right. You're going to need some help. Here's a check for X dollars that you signed up for. Good luck. Well, I'm back on the plane back to Minnesota or wherever they're from." And then at that point, you're like, "Well, I guess I could Google defense attorneys." I hope, most of us don't have a lot of friends who are criminals, so you can't call your friends, say, "Hey, who got you off last time?" Right? Hopefully. So you would be on your own. And I think, if we take a look at in California, or let's just pick on Texas, if you're in Texas and you're in a rural county and you're thinking everything's great, everybody's got the right mindset in life, and then you go into Houston, and in Houston you have a problem. Now you're in a big city DA's house, and it's a whole different thing. You just don't know when you're going to need to defend yourself. It's probably, unless it's against wild boar, it's probably not going to be in the rural areas of Texas. It's going to be in a hotbed city. Same thing, Arizona, California. It's going to be in one of those areas that may have a DA with a decidedly anti-gun flavor about them. So you're going to be fighting in an unknown court far away from your home typically, and things can go bad. You need to have support, and I honestly hope and pray that your money you spend for CCW Safe over the course of your lifetime is an absolute waste of money. That's the best thing, is that you never have to use it. We've talked about this 100 times, that, having to defend your life, even though you didn't cause the situation, can materially affect the rest of your life, financially, civilly, criminally too. It just, again, it depends on whose house you end up playing in as far as the courts are concerned. So there's a lot of things you don't have control over, and you'd be kind of flotsam, if you will, if you don't have this backup team.
Yeah. One of the other things is, the sooner we can get to work on something, the more we can kind of get the best preparation in place for your defense, for your support. And it doesn't just affect the member who's involved in the incident, and it affects everybody around you, your spouse and your children and things like that. So we want to make sure that everybody is taken care of in those situations. And part of that is that immediate notification. Even if I'm not sure, if there's even a doubt in my mind whether maybe I should call, if you've been arrested, displayed your firearm, or had to fire a shot, the answer is yes. You need to make a call. And the way we always go about it is, your first call is to 911. You give them basic information. I was attacked. I had to defend myself. I discharged my firearm. I need law enforcement and medical attention.
It's not like we're coaching you what to say, like say this exact thing. You just have to realize that you've just been in an incident. You've been forced to defend your life. Your adrenaline is pumping through your system like you can't control. you get on a 911 call and you turn into chatty Cathy. Somebody pulls a string in your back and you're just going on. And then in high school, when Bobby, whatever, you can't stop talking because the physical state you're in. And we've talked about this many times, and it is so important to try and discipline yourself to give the basic facts. I was attacked. um, I'm wearing this. I had to discharge a firearm, send medical help, location, name, and then honestly, I need to hang up now. And the 911 dispatcher is trained to keep you there with the recorders rolling and asking you all these nice questions because you're not Mirandized yet. So that's their job. And in most cases, if somebody is a criminal, it's great to get that information from them. But it's important that you know, that you think about, what if I have to do this, what would I say? What would I do? And it's important that you have that at least in the back of your mind.
Well, and you're talking about being disciplined in what you say. You really have to pre-plan this. You have to think ahead as to what kind of steps you are going to take. Because as soon as that 911 call is done, I need you to call us. That is the time to make that emergency call for us. So that allows us to put resources into play in many, many different ways. Even if it has to do with media and things like that, you really want a seasoned, qualified team to be in charge of that, instead of just flying by the seat of your pants and running out there and giving it a good old college try.
Yeah.
The
You
more
get one shot at it, right?
Yeah.
Not a lot of do-overs. You get one shot at it.
And we know that we live in a day and age that the media really doesn't care whether they get it right. They just, if it bleeds, it leads, and they want to put out whatever and be the first to put it out and get it out there, regardless if it's true or not. And that's something that becomes a hurdle for us as we're preparing a defense. So the fact that you've been involved, even if you've been arrested, I don't care if you call from jail, or have somebody call for you on your behalf. But the sooner we know, the better. It is next to impossible when we get a phone call and I have somebody that says, "Hey, my brother is a member of your service, and he was involved in this incident, and he was arrested a week ago Saturday. He's got court today, and he needs your help." I would love to be able to have those systems in play to just snap my fingers and make it go, but it just doesn't work like that. Any good attorney, any good investigator has a caseload. They have things they're already working on. So these are things that have to be, we have to have the availability to even get there and put these pieces into play for you. It's just very urgent for us. The earlier we know, the better we can get ahead of it and protect you as a member. It's just, like Phil was saying earlier, you wreck the car and there's rust in the metal, and that happened way back. We need to know as soon as we can while it's still fresh, and we can help prepare you. And part of that is also, if you've never been involved, you're not a law enforcement or first responder, or you haven't been involved in combat, not a military veteran or anything like that, you don't understand what a trauma does to your brain. You go into protective mode, and things don't come to the forefront as you're trying to recall what just took place, the way that you think they did. And I've known police officers that have had tremendous issue dealing with something going, I know that there's no way this sequence of events took place like what's in my head right now. And that's a trauma memory. That's the way those things work. There's also guys that get involved in something and everything works just right. It just depends by the incident, by the person, your sleep, how much rest you've had, all kinds of things play part into those things. Another point we want to get at is, we always talk about not just de-escalation, but complete avoidance. If I can not be there when a situation goes down, and that's a bonus for everybody right there. Obviously, if
it's so important. It's like in high school, right? Something bad happened, and it was a lot better to hear about it on Monday morning than to have been involved in it over Saturday night, right? So yeah, not being in the wrong area putting yourself in a bad situation is absolutely the best thing, or recognizing one early and leaving. Maybe you pulled up at a stoplight, stop sign, and you look and there's two guys with hoodies on the side of the road at the light pole. Hey, blow the light if you can. They started pushing the car. Just get out of there. Seated in a car with appendix carrying your seatbelt on is not the place to start defending yourself, right? You're at a huge disadvantage. So you have mobility. Get out of there. Call it in. But there's ways that you just don't want to, because you have a gun. It doesn't mean that you have to use it in every single instance. The best bet is almost always just to get out of there. And especially, we have our mentality, right? Most people who carry firearms as civilians are men. Not all, but a vast majority. And of course, when you have you have attitudes, you have ego. And a lot of times that answering the call to the ego is going to keep you in a situation you'd be far better off leaving if you have that opportunity.
That's why, you and I always touch on the fact that if you're carrying a firearm, you have to put emotions in check. You got to put them on hold.
I think actually legally you have, I shouldn't say legally, I'm not a doctor, a lawyer. I don't even play one on TV, but I think that you really have a responsibility not to escalate, right? You can't escalate something and then claim self-defense. You have a firearm on and somebody says something to your wife and you go over there and slap him. And then I had to shoot him because he got up, right? No, this is, you cannot escalate. In my understanding, you cannot escalate a situation and claim self-defense.
Yeah, you become the aggressor. We've seen this multiple times, this exact very incident where we have somebody that feels slighted or wronged on the roadway. It's just,
it's called Wednesday in Southern California.
It is in California for sure. It's just one of those that as we're going through things, it's crazy to me that, yes, I inadvertently did something and I really did something that offended Phil and now he's pissed off. And so now it's back and forth and flying the "you're number one" sign. And, you can see him mouthing and yelling and doing whatever. Everybody feels a little bit more safe and secure when they're wrapped in that steel coffin, but there's no security really in a vehicle. The security is in your ability to avoid that situation. So if that means slowing down, changing lanes, getting out of the way, letting the guy get ahead or whatever, let him get ahead. And if that's not working, take the next exit. That's going to take you a minute out of your way.
And if he follows you, call 911.
Yeah, absolutely. Be the first
Absolutely.
to call 911 every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. You know what? Let's touch on that because that is a big thing. So let's just say that this guy, the bad guy, cuts you off and then he's offended and he's throwing the bird. You're trying to do everything you can. He chases you off the freeway. Um, you're at a stoplight. There's two trucks in front of you. You can't get around it. He comes up to your window. He's beating on it, and you, at that point, you pull your firearm out in a defensive posture. You don't even point it at him, but you have it there because you're stuck in your car. There's nothing you can do. He sees it. He goes back to his car, calls 911 and says, "You've been pointing the gun at him," right? So all of a sudden you went from victim to perp in a half a second. And that other guy is a liar anyway. So it's a whole nightmare of things. So you really have to make sure that if you ever have that incident, you need to call it in and explain to 911, give a description. This man's attacking my car. You are the victim, not the aggressor.
Well, and knowing um, your laws by your state, because a display of a firearm has so many remarkably different charges depending on where you live. It can be a very simple menacing thing that's a misdemeanor all the way up to aggravated assault.
Yeah, brandishing could be either a misdemeanor or a felony.
Sure can. Depends on where you live. You have to know those things. It's just one of those. There's so many resources available to everybody online now, good resources, that if you don't take 10 minutes to educate yourself, that's on you. It's one of those, we go back to the road rage thing. We had one that I felt like was being handled to perfection. Incident happens. Again, you've got a testosterone filled rage by some guy in a car, and he's having an interaction on the roadway at speed with a husband and wife. And the wife is actually driving, pulls over to the shoulder of the highway and calls 911. But she's in front of the guy that's angry, and that guy pulls in behind him. All of a sudden, the husband is a little concerned because the guy's behind him, and he gets out and approaches the enraged driver. It's just the two cars on the shoulder of the road. There's nobody else. And whether he did or whether he didn't, it wasn't like he pointed his firearm at the guy in the back car, but he raises his shirt, he displays it, and suddenly that's the guy, just like Phil was talking about. That's who picks up the phone. That's who makes the call. And he's able to give, this is the vehicle they're in. It's a man and a woman. This is the tag number. And this guy's got a pistol in his waistband. He just came and pointed it at me. And if we don't have video in the area, we don't have any way to defend that kind of phone call. It's just one of those that avoidance is absolutely the best and safest alternative in those things. It's the way out. It's the way to keep you safe, to keep you healthy, to keep you happy. Because I'm telling you, once you've been arrested, happy goes out the window.
Might be your cellmate's name.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the other part is you're going to be in a situation you've never had to deal with before, and depending on where this incident happens, say it's in Los Angeles, well, you're going to be in jail, and you're going to go in California. We've emptied out all of our state prisons with all the big felons. We put them all in county jail. So that's where you're going to go. It's just like being in the big house, Attica, in a county jail. It's not Barney Fife, giving you a coffee through the through the grates. This is a horrible place to be. And they have snitches in there. And these guys, they get extra cigarettes and favors for turning dime on you. And you don't even, you're upset. You don't want to be there because, man, this is what happened. Tell me what happened. What are you in for? What happened? And then they turn dime on you and you don't even know. You're in a whole different world you've never, hopefully never experienced and never will have to. But it's, Jack Reacher isn't in there to help you out.
One of the other things that is not an emergency is something happens in the legal world, whether it's a new law or proposals of new laws. Yes, those are things that upset us. They're things that bother me just as much as they bother the next person.
You can't call on the 800 line for that?
It's not an emergency call, guys. It's not. It
is an emergency call. Call your state legislator who passed that. That's who you need to call.
And, Phil and I have had the honor to have guys on the show that have actually been on the front lines and been a part of those battles. We had Chuck Michelle earlier that was part of
Bruin case.
Group of guys that worked the Bruin case and argued that case in front of the Supreme Court for New York State, and they won. They struck down their concealed carry law as being unconstitutional and too restrictive. That's not the things we want to come on here and talk about all the time, but there are important issues that we feel like you need to be aware of, and things that are going on in the country. But I have no standing. I don't have, there's no politician I can call in California that gives a squat about what I think about their voting record or how they're going to vote on this next bill. They don't care. So those have to be grassroots things. Those are things you have control of. There are places that people sat on their hands for long enough that now they've got a deep hole that they have to try and dig themselves out of. But that's not everywhere. And yes, we are 100% in support of everybody's rights, especially their constitutional rights. And we do our own thing as far as supporting legal measures and things like that. But we are only single voices. It takes a grassroots effort where everybody gets involved and everybody speaks up, and it gets addressed that way. So, we had Rick Travis on recently. Again, not the most exciting kind of material to cover, but he lets you guys know what is truly going on out there. California kind of took the exact same measures that New York State did to the ruling in the Bruin case. And, immediately they started, I can't outlaw you from carrying a gun. So now I'm going to outlaw the areas where you can carry a gun. You can carry the gun, but you're just not allowed to carry them in these places. And then you just make that list so great that it becomes an issue to carry anywhere. Those are things that have to be fought where the issues are being raised. And again, we are fully 100% in support of those things, in support of gun-free restrictions where you're not coming in and starting to chop away at those rights, however you do it, whether it's ammo or where I can carry or, who can carry. As long as you're of sound mind, you're not mentally unstable, and you're not a convicted felon, you're not a prohibited person from owning a gun.
I think you said that a little bit backwards. You said you were 100% in charge of gun-free. No, we don't want gun-free zones. We want to be able to carry.
Yeah, we want the freedom on those issues. And
I want to save you a few phone calls.
yeah, it's just one of those things that yeah, we're so far away from the gun-free stuff. It's you know, you mark these things as being gun-free, and they become targets of opportunity. You know, we've seen that in many places. You're starting to not see that in churches anymore, because churches are standing up and they're getting security teams in place, and they're not easy targets anymore. You know, we're gonna arm IRS agents with patrol rifles and hire an additional 87,000, and we're not going to put any of those resources into our schools where our children are. There are just so many issues out there that you know, we can't be the lone voice. We have to have everybody out there making phone calls and speaking up for your rights. That's the way it gets handled, is when you actually take a stand and let your elected officials know. Anything else that you're thinking of, Phil, as far as the questions for new folks out there, as far as how to handle different situations?
Well, I think, you know, obviously, if they've been listening to your podcast for a while, the other thing we keep stressing is you might be a new gun owner or new to carrying concealed, and training is so important. You have to train all the time, even when ammunition's expensive. You have to train all the time. And, you know, you've done, as a firearm instructor for the police department, you know, you guys don't go and shoot 500 rounds a day every single day, but you have training drills that maybe you can take one box of ammo and it lasts 2.5 hours, because you're just doing manipulation and training and breaking the shot every. So maybe you can give them an idea of some simple training drills that don't take 500 rounds of ammo a day.
Well, you know, JJ Rakaz is one of the greatest shooters walking the planet right now. He is just a machine with a pistol in his hands. But that's what he does. That's what he does for a living. He shoots a gun. But even JJ talks about, you know, if you just take this much time and just do this little bit over the course of time, it's the consistency of that training. I can tell you that a young police officer learning how to shoot a pistol, in, you know, it's different from state to state and jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but our kids get about 3 total weeks of actual hands-on firearms training. And they come out of their holster, just their presentation, thousands of times in those 3 weeks, thousands. And it's one of those that it's done so much that it can be done without thinking. It's just, it's built to the point where it's autonomic. When the time comes, it just happens. The same way, you know, JJ was talking about dry fire. You don't have to dry fire for 10 or 15 minutes a day. Do 3, you know, take just a little short while, you know. So without buying a single box of ammunition, I can unload, make a safe gun, and I can work on my draw stroke over and over and over. Doesn't have to be for an hour. Then I can do the same thing as far as learning my trigger and how much travel I have and where it's going to stack up as it's coming through, especially in a striker fire, when it gets to that breaking point and I know that it's about to engage. So learning where the wall, where that little wall is that I have to break through. And it's just a press. It's not a big deal. So I can work on magazine changes. I can work on draw stroke. I can work on dry fire practices. I mean, there's so many things that I can do without ever leaving my house. I've seen guys that, obviously are really good with their gun handling and safety skills. They exercise all of that all of the time, and they'll sit and dry fire at the TV. They just always just have something that they're working very minute little details. Our production manager Justin talks about, if you did nothing more than just dry fire and just really get that down solid, you are light years ahead of guys that are out there just with no rhyme or reason. And you see this all of the time at public shooting ranges. Guys roll up and they unzip their pouch or whatever they've got, and then all of a sudden it's just spray and pray, and they're throwing rounds all over the place.
And you didn't think a 9mm would have a shotgun pattern, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then you watch somebody like Justin shoot, and the guys can patch over his target, with a quarter. There's just so many things out there that and this is not just a new shooter thing. This is everybody. Physical skills are perishable skills, and if you're not out there working on them, they go awry. They go and diminish, and really in not very long. The other thing is I don't have to rebuild those skills if it's something that I just do a little bit consistently all the time. So those are just little mindful tips. Some people are concerned with pointing a real firearm. You can get a SIRT gun, you can get airsoft gun.
They have a lot of airsofts in almost every make and model now.
Yeah, they're so and if you don't have the means to do one of those, you can always go to concealedcarry.com, get one of Jacob Paulson's barrel blocks. Makes everybody know for a fact that you're operating a safe, unloaded firearm, and it's now just a training aid. The police department has blue guns, things that are red guns, whichever company that you go with, but it's a replica of your firearm, same weight, same dimensions, and you can practice presentation and things like that with it. So there's all kinds of things that you can do out there. The biggest deal today is we just wanted to come on and discuss some of the things that make it a little more difficult to give you the best representation that we can. It's one of those that, again, I say it until Phil just rolls his eyes at me so hard that I can hear him. You kind of suspend your right to respond to things emotionally when you're carrying a firearm. And your first thought should really be, every time, if I didn't have a gun, how would I handle this situation? That firearm is a tool of last resort, and it's the only thing that I'm gonna deploy when life is endangered and somebody's gonna die if I don't intercede in that and step in. It's common sense stuff, but if we allow ourselves to get emotionally tangled in stuff, we tend to lose that. So
it's common sense when we're sitting down at the table talking about it. When it's happening and it's live, you have to, if you haven't thought these things through, just like you haven't practiced your presentation, your trigger, reloads, clearing jams, when it happens in real life, it's a whole different thing. So, here's the starting point. You're a new member. You have all the rights God's given us. Now we have responsibilities. And it's not just us saying this. There are law enforcement agencies that will hold you to a level of responsibility here. You have to make sure that you follow things correctly. And so learning the steps and accepting them and realizing, hey, I think you said it perfectly there, Rob. I have a pistol on right now. Would I be approaching this group of guys that are doing whatever nefarious deed if I didn't have a pistol on? Am I bringing a problem? Am I escalating a problem that may not exist if I don't stick my nose into it?
Well, and it creates that false bravado. There's
Oh, yeah.
there's things out there that just, Paul Sharp said a few weeks back, the deal where, you got these kids and they live in this high crime area, and unfortunately for them, they're under the same roof as some really nefarious characters that are gangsters and just thugs, and police are going in and serving warrants and knocking doors down, and these kids are 3 and 5 years old, and by the time they're 18, they're impervious to somebody running in their house with a firearm. They don't care. So
And he said on the search warrant he was doing, they
yes,
just sat there in front of the TV playing their games, telling the officers, "Hey, get out of the way! I can't see my game."
yeah, it's just an annoyance for them. So if you think that kid is going to be deterred and frightened because you have a gun, you've got another thing coming. You need to deal with some things in your own world and figure out that things get really serious really fast, especially when a firearm's concerned. So it's a soapbox episode. I apologize for that, but there's just things out there that if we get a little cooperation from folks, we're able to truly better serve you. We already have the best response of anybody in the industry. There is kind of everybody else doing whatever they do, and then there's CCW Safe. We have absolutely just decades and decades and decades of experience to fall back on, and we bring that out to assist our members in their worst times. So it's one of those that, whether it's the attorneys or the investigators or the experts, or just our response team, the peer support that's available for you and those kind of things is really just unparalleled. So
It is. I've had numerous people bump into me, and they're asking me about CCW Safe specifically because they've been with ABC brand, and now their membership's coming up, and they want to come over. And when we go through the differences, your coverage difference and the experience difference, they're making the change, and I'm glad to see that, because it's a great coverage. You guys do a great job, and you're there and you care. And in that situation, CCW Safe is going to be the only people on your team that care about making this right and putting in that effort.
well, and have the decades of knowledge and experience to back that up.
Just don't play poker with Rob.
We appreciate everybody tuning in. You got any takeaways for today, Phil?
No, I think you did a great job. It's you have to inspect what you expect, right? And it's the same thing as this is the basics, but hey, basics make all the difference.
Yeah, they do. As always, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, you can always reach me directly at rob at ccwsafe.com. We're honored to represent you guys. We're so thankful that you tune in and join us on our podcast, read our newsletters, and trust us to be your service provider. If you have any ideas or things you'd like to hear about on the podcast, you can also reach out to me, same email, rob@CCW Safe. And we like to touch on the things you want to hear about as well. So thank you guys, appreciate you so much. And we will see you next week.